Hey everybody, it's me, Undead Viking, and I welcome you to the first ever video of, well, me doing this. This has been something that I've wanted to do for a while, actually, as far as doing the video reviews go, and I was always kind of a little bit concerned as to how I would go about doing it. And so I'm just going to kind of fly with this, and I'm going to hope it works. But I'm going to try to do some role-playing game reviews for you. If you've watched some of my video blogs and stuff, and I probably don't do enough of those, but if you've watched those, you know that I am an RPGer first. Dungeons & Dragons was introduced to me when I was about 7 or 8 years old by my older brother, and I dove right into it, and I absolutely loved everything about it. It kind of opened up just this incredible world of imagination and ideas and processes and everything, and I didn't, I understood maybe half of the rules. I can remember trying to read the Dungeon Master's Guide when I was like in 5th grade. I can actually remember sitting in an easy chair in my parents' living room, and I was reading, if you know the old advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide, and I was sitting there reading through it, and my older sister came walk by, and she saw it, and she looked at it, and she was like, "Are you actually reading that?" She said, just like the whole process of it was just kind of just too out there for her, and and I love her for it. I love the fact that, because she supported it totally, and she when I went through the whole process, when people were saying, "Oh, it's like devil worship" and everything like that, and my mother kind of raised her eyebrows a little bit, and my sister was one of my biggest supporters of it. She said, "No, it's if you watch him play with his friends, they're very focused, and it has nothing to do with torturing maidens or anything like that. We were just goofing around trying to beat up orcs and find magic swords." So regardless, this is something I've wanted to do for a while, and I'm going to try to actually do some reviews of role-playing games, systems, modules, campaign source books, whatever I personally catches my eye and I pick up and I purchase. I'm gonna try to do one of these for it. So I recently picked up the mega dungeon that I'm doing this review of. There was over Christmas, Frog God Games had a sale, and I've had my eye on this particular mega dungeon, the Slumbering Tsar. I'd had my eye on it for a long time. It's been around for a couple of years, actually. But the price tag, $150, it was like a ton of money. And they had like a 30% off sale. The stuff never goes on sale, but they had a 30% off sale. And so I dove in and I purchased it. Now, just a little bit of background if you don't know about Frog God Games. Frog God Games is kind of is the successor to an earlier company called Necromancer Games. Now, when the big D&D 3.0 situation came about, and kind of popped up on everybody's radar, there was a lot of, since the whole thing, they opened up the gaming license, and they said, if you want to make campaign source books or dungeons or splat books full of like tons of prestige classes and things like that, you can go ahead and do that. It's open, and that had never been done before. And so there was kind of a rush to publish these things, and there was some good stuff, and there was some pretty bad stuff. And but I remember going into my local game store. Game store doesn't even exist anymore, called Omni, and there was this the series of adventures that were from this game called Necromancer Games, and And so I purchased a couple of them, and I don't remember which ones I purchased first. I ended up buying everything that they did, just because it was so good. The whole idea, they said it was third edition rules, first edition feel was the mentality that they had, and they had some excellent adventures that are sadly, as far as print form, like nearly impossible to get your hands on. I treasure my copies of The Vault of Lauren Carr, The Hall of the Rainbow Mage, my hardcover of here, I can actually show you Bard's Gate, like a city source book that they did. The Tomb of Abyss Thor, and so forth. And the granddaddy big thing that they ever did was this mega dungeon called Rapan Athuk. And now Rapan Athuk actually was in like three, like RA1, RA2, RA3. They actually did the dungeons, like the classic old D&D dungeons, like X1, X2, and U1 through 3, which are, the Salt Marsh series and stuff like that. See, I'm old school. And so I thought it was so cool. And then Rapan Athuk, the whole idea of it was that this was like just a super deadly dungeon. This was not a situation where the players were supposed to go to each and every room and search each and every room and find everything that was in there, and find every scrap of treasure, because if they did that, they were going to run into stuff that was going to kill them. And I loved it. I loved the idea of it, and I put my players through it, and I slaughtered a lot of player characters. And so they had those three soft cover modules, and RA1, RA2, RA3, and then they actually they kind of came back and they said, well, we're actually going to do a redo of it. They're going to call it Rapan Athuk Reloaded. And I actually am lucky enough to own, and I've kept this in pretty good quality, a copy. And I remember this was $75, and I thought, that's a ton of money. But I bought it, I pre-ordered it, and this is a box set of Rapan Athuk. And I'm not going to do a review of Rapan Athuk right now, just because of the fact that there's actually another version of it, and I blew the money on it. I'm waiting for it to show up, and when I get that, I'm going to actually read that. I'm going to go through it. But this was just really well done. It had these book 1, and then book 2, and then book 3, these massive books full of tons of things that were going to kill your players. What's this? I wonder what... I haven't looked in this in quite a while. I'm just going to actually check here. I apparently took the time to put a stat here. This must have been monsters or something that they were fighting and getting killed by. But regardless, so they had like this massive thing, and then of course they included this little sheet in here that Bill Webb and Clark Peterson, the two guys that ran Necromancer Games, signed each one of these, and they placed these within the giant, massive module. And then, of course, on the back, because of the fact that it was such a deadly dungeon, they actually had official killer DM, and I was lucky enough to get number 66. And if I remember correctly, I think there was 1,000 copies. And whoever got number 666, they were supposed to be able to contact the company, and they were going to get a copy of every single thing that Necromancer Games published for free, just because they were lucky enough to win that lottery. I don't know if that person ever came forward or anything like that, but I thought it was pretty cool that I got 66. I just needed, that one more 6 or whatever, and I would have been able to. And then after they did that, they kind of had this thing with this little renaissance where they actually did mega dungeons. And I apologize for the long intro here, but this is me, and so you're just gonna have to deal with it. But they did a couple other big giant modules, hardcover modules, and one of them was the Trouble at Durbanford. which was for higher level PCs, like level 8, I think, and they're supposed to take them to like level 12 or 13. And so, and this was I'll be completely honest, I didn't like this one nearly as much as Rapanathuk or the next one I'm going to show you. It was still really good, but it just, I don't know, it had, instead of being more straightforward and fighting, it had more mystery to it, I guess. And my players, I try to implement role-playing aspects into the games that we play, but sadly, the players that I have seem to be much more interested in just slaying monsters and taking what they have. They also had this, and this was amazing, the Lost City of Barakas. And this was actually for first level players, and it was supposed to take them, I believe, to level 5 or 6. And very deadly dungeon, lots of cool stuff going on. And I think they've done a reprint of this, and because this was for 3rd edition. And but they've redone it for Pathfinder, which is a system that we still use today. And I might have to pick that up. I'm very intrigued at what they've done, because I know they've added a bunch of stuff. But and maybe if I get a hold of those, I will. If I get a hold of the reprint of Barakas, I will do a review of that as well. But regardless, I've kind of been skating around the dungeon that I want to talk to you about today, and that is this, the Slumbering Tsar Saga. And I'm just going to show you, this is a massive book, and you can see right there, it says $150. This is kind of, sort of, a prequel to Rapanathuk. The idea is that Rapanathuk is this dungeon where all of these evil creatures and demons and goblins and orcs and clerics of the demon god Orcus fled to escape from this army of good, this army of light, if you will, because they had been the city of Tsar, Tsar. It had nothing to do with Russian people at all. They actually explain what it means in the book. I think it's like Saint Harsuth was like the name of the city before it got corrupted, and so then people just called it Tsar after that. For Saint, like and instead of Saint, Sathar, and then Tsar, as they just shortened it. And there was basically this giant city full of evil and demons and clerics and undead and all this stuff. And all these forces of good laid siege to the city. And the battle raged, and it destroyed the lands around it. And they call the land around this ancient ruin the Desolation. And it's just cracked pits of quicksand and geysers of acid and everything are in big giant fissures and canyons instead of where once was actual like forest and bushes and shrubbery and like non-evil wildlife and what have you. And so the idea was that there was this giant battle, and at some point in the battle all of the evil things within it like teleported out, and they left, and they ran away. I mean, and so the forces of good chased them down, and they left a token group of paladins and good aligned people to like go into the city and make sure that it was fine. But then they chased these down, and they chased them down into this place, the Forest of Hope, and theoretically they chased these things into the Dungeon of Graves, which is called the Rapanathuk, and neither army was ever seen again. They never saw any of the evil, and they never saw any of the good. But everybody knows there's this super evil dungeon out there, and then I'll talk about Rapanathuk once I get that revised version in the mail. But Slumbering Tsar is is what this your group of adventurers, if you run this campaign or if you play in this campaign, basically you hear about this old ancient evil giant fortress of a city, theoretically filled with treasure and magic, just waiting to be taken. You know, the bad things left, and they're saying you need to go and find out what's going on. There's all kinds of different adventure hooks and plot points that you can give to convince, you know, to give a reason for your players to head in that direction and go into this area, this desolation as it's called. And frankly, as I'm gonna read this quickly in the very beginning and I'm actually gonna show you some pages in the book here in just a little bit before I wrap this up. But it actually says, where is this? Something. It's about, like, you know, because players like kind of get attached to their players, if you will, or their PCs, if you will. And it says here, this module, in fact, this entire series are designed to provide the players with great freedom where they go and what they do. Familiarize yourself with the entire adventure, including the NPCs and their motivations. Some of the seemingly friendly NPCs and potential allies have nefarious connections with various encounter areas. And so this is one of those things where, you know, like, nothing is as it seems, if you will. And the writer of this, Greg Avon, he's written a lot of adventures and a lot of things for campaigns and D&D and what have you. And frankly, he's probably one of the best, if not the best, writers of dungeons and adventures out there right now. So, but it does state that that this is like a single giant mega adventure, but and it says you can basically, you know, obviously you can do whatever you want after you buy the thing. You can just take certain parts and place it. And this is definitely, they do place it into this world called Lost Lands. That is this world that Bill Webb and I believe Clark Peterson, the guys who made Necromancer Games, because this is a Frog God Games thing. After Necromancer Games, I should have mentioned this, after Necromancer Games kind of dissolved, you know, it was just one of those things where Clark Peterson, I believe, he's a lawyer who lives in Las Vegas, and he got to a certain point where, like, his real job was taking up too much of his time, and there's still talk that Necromancer Games someday will come back. But the heir apparent, Bill Webb, has continued on and created Frog God Games, and this is his creation. This is his publication, and but regardless, where I'm going with this is that they have this world that Bill Webb played in, you know, because he's an old school gamer, just like you and me and everything like that. I mean, like, we all had our, if you started playing in D&D back in the 70s, you created a world. And I mean, I still have world maps. Like, my world went through a lot of different names, but like there was like one that was called Parlon, there was one that was called Hearth, there was one that was called you know, Trent, and but all of them kind of eventually had the same core map, and Bill Webb has that himself, and he has this place that he called the Lost Lands, and it's where he put all of his creations, like Rapana Thuk is his creation. I mean, other people help, but I mean, he had that dungeon, he created it, he put it in that world. And the Slumbering Tsar is in that world of Lost Lands. Now, obviously, you don't have to play it in the Lost Lands. You can just put it wherever you want. You can change the gods that are listed in here to fit gods that suit your campaign, and that's really, really easy to do. And which is what I'm going to do when I do it, because I have my own pantheon of gods that I created myself, and you know. But all of that stuff is very malleable as far as, but you can take, just like with any adventure, you can take different parts out of it and like use it, just like, you know, like use a dungeon that you locate in here, like a small dungeon of these acid spitting gargoyles. I mean, that's a perfect encounter that you could put in any world you wanted to, you know. And so there's stuff like that you can do. But one of the big things they say is that if your players have PCs that they are very endeared to and they like, they probably don't want to play them in this world because you're gonna die. And there's a really good chance that there's not going to be anything left of your body to actually resurrect either. And but I mean, that's kind of one of those things where I've always liked about D&D, and I was very sad when you know, like being able to come back from the dead is so trivial in a lot of campaigns that I played in, where it's just like, oh, and you know, it's like, oh, I'm dead. Oh, true resurrection. You're alive. Yay, you're fine. It's like nothing happened. Isn't it amazing? You know, and I've always kind of had a problem with that. But thankfully, this mentality, this first edition mentality that Bill Webb has, and Greg Avon for that matter, is maintained in these particular things. Also, I should mention that before I show you some of the parts of the book here, one of the nice things about this is that it is a fantastic world. I mean, we've kind of, because I think it's a Game of Thrones thing. We've kind of gotten to the point where I believe we want grim and gritty and low magic worlds, you know, where it's just like we don't want there to be like fantastic, you know, creatures that are, you know, that people have combined, you know, like a Tyrannosaurus Rex and a fire-breathing dragon or something like that. You know, we want dragons to be these mythical creatures that nobody ever sees, because if you ever do, it's certain doom, because you know they're just so rare and amazing. You know, and that's all well and good, and I can play in a low magic campaign, but I do love the idea that, like, going back to a time when I played D&D, and behind every single door there could be a pack of wyverns waiting to poison my players and rip the flesh from their bones, or gelatinous cubes slithering down hallways, you know, trying to paralyze me and turn my skin and bones into jelly, or giant, one of my favorite monsters of all time, the flail snail. You know, the giant snail that has the flails for antennas, and you know, things like that. I mean, it's just like, I always kind of loved the idea of a true fantastic world, if you will, when I played D&D. So. Regardless, let me just show you some of the book. Like I said, I'm not going to show all of it, but because it is huge. But let me just show you some of the book and show you just how massive it is and all the stuff. Kind of a brief overview of what's in it, and then we'll come back and I'll give you my final thoughts about the Slumbering Tsar, and maybe perhaps I can convince you to, if you like giant, huge adventures, that you will put some money down and pick this up for yourself. All right, cool. Alright, this is the giant book of the Slumbering Tsar. As you can see, the cover is kind of neat. You can see there's these adventures, and they're scaling down here. And of course, here's like these bones, and perhaps this magic sword there. And of course, here's this like spider demon waiting to eat them as soon as they show their faces or whatever. So, as I said, the book is 952 pages, and it has, you know, the classic two-column writing as far as for a game of this big. Now, it isn't 952 pages of adventure, I should mention. The last, like, 100 or so, I shouldn't say 100, but there's a ton of maps in the back of the book. And also, there is... and maps are awesome. They're really well done, and especially since you have the PDF, you're able to print these out, which, you know, obviously is much better, easier than trying to flip back and forth, which is invaluable. But obviously the legal appendix. But I like this. The obituaries, name and level, player name, cause of death. You can actually like have the how they died or whatever in that spot. And so, and also, because of the fact that a lot of people have been wondering, well, what if I don't have all of I'm sorry, I'm trying to page back here. What if I don't have all of also the little player handouts, because they're going to find whatever. But they have all of the, like the spells that maybe you don't have, the special magic items, or what have you. And also they have all the monsters as well. The new monsters that they create in this particular book that aren't located in any other bestiary, if you will. There's a lot of monsters that show up in the bestiaries of like the creature collections, the old school like sword and wizardry creature collections. And if you don't have access to those, which you probably don't, they do give you full stat blocks for all of those. And there's also a lot of them that come from the Tome of Horrors complete, which is something you can still purchase through Frog God Games. But also, you don't need to. That's the really awesome thing, is that you don't need to purchase any of those things because of the fact that they give you the complete stat block and they tell you with all the different powers and the abilities, and they actually go into a fairly good definition of how the monster is going to react and what they look like and everything like that. So you don't have to worry about like, oh, I don't know what this crazy new monster looks like, and so don't worry about that. You can definitely locate that. But obviously, classic look. I mean, the artwork. I'm showing you some of the artwork, but it has the gray box. Read that out loud to the players. Gives you the challenge rating of the room if you're worried about experience. I don't usually give out experience based on the particular combat or whatever that happened. I'm one of those DMs that I will just kind of keep the players at the level that I think that they should be for that particular, how far they are within the combat. And so you have just like, so this artwork I love. It's if you got into the old Necromancer games, this artwork is very indicative of that. I do love the old school look of it, and everything that is located. I mean, everything that's in here kind of evokes that old school feel. And if you are a fan of that, you're gonna get that feeling every time you read it. There is tons. One of the things that I think is kind of sad, in a way, is that there is tons of background information. I mean, like, literally, like a novel's worth of information about NPCs and great heroes that went off and fought and died, and they're referenced time and time again. And over 90% of that, I'm sure, will never get revealed to the player characters, just because. But it's there for the DM, and so it's kind of one of those things where this book is just a joy to read. Check out that guy. That guy's awesome. But it gives the dungeon master that background feeling, that background existence in the world, if you will, and it allows them to, as long as they're able to do so, a good DM can do this, they will give that feeling to the world, as far as that whole process, and as far as just the weight of the situation, and the sheer amount of almost weight, if you will, as far as like the weight of the evil that is it, because this world, this area of the world, is profoundly evil, and things are just waiting to destroy you. Now, I'm going to show you something really quick, and this is, I didn't want to give anything away too much, but the camp is like the little town I mentioned, that lives right outside Desolation. And one of the first things that happens within the camp is you walk in and you see that there is somebody that was lynched, and he actually is an undead. But in this crazy world, and he's an advanced hanged man. He, for whatever reason, during the day, he just climbs up on this tree and just swings in the breeze. But as soon as night falls, he climbs down and looks around for people to kill. And it's that kind of like portion of the game, like, so the players will show up at the city. They're like, oh look, some guy, obviously made some people angry, and they strung him up. Oh well, no matter. And then they'll go into the city and they'll do some things, and maybe next time they come back to town, they'll see the body isn't hanging up there anymore. It's like, what the heck happened there? And all of a sudden, here comes this guy, and he's trying to kill them off, and because of the fact that during the night he remembers that he was murdered, and he gets angry and he chases them down. And the camp itself has a ton of interesting characters, and there's even it has its own currency, and so one of the things, and I think it's almost put there to kind of like infuriate people. They have to actually like change their gold, something that's worth money, into iron bits, because of the fact that this place like has almost no life of its own. I mean, they can't grow anything. What little water they have is polluted, and so in order to keep it alive, they had to create their own currency. That basically you get one of these iron bits per 10 gold that you trade in, but the players will have to do it if they want to buy the provisions and things that they need, and so it's stuff like that that really make the world kind of the bleakness of the world come alive. I don't want to give away too many spoilers, because there's probably a lot of people that will watch this video that will actually end up playing in the game. But this is one of those things where there are mysteries, like beings that you think are evil will turn out to have machinations of their own that maybe they aren't so much evil as they just had a string of bad luck, and if the players take the time to talk to them and figure out what they're doing and why they're doing what they're doing, they can help them, and they can gain an ally, if you will. There's also people that like seemingly are kind and nice, and as soon as the players' backs are turned, that they think that's the perfect place to put their knife. So there's all kinds of wonderful stuff going on with the adventure as far as that's concerned. Now, I just want to, once again, just show you some of the pictures and whatever. I mean, as I said, this is a massive book. It is going to take you a very long time to read through everything and prepare yourself. The lucky thing is that they're never going to get into I bet that treasure, I bet it isn't cursed. I bet there's no traps. Go ahead and grab it there. I'm sure things will be fine. But no, I mean, it's one of those things where you can kind of read ahead. I don't think you would have to read the whole thing to be able to then be able to do the adventure and put the players through the adventure, but you are going to have to read ahead, and just in case the players decide to go in a direction that you are not expecting, that you will be prepared for that as well. So there you go. Like I said, I wanted to show you a little bit of it. Here you go. There's the back or whatever. The wait is over. Like they said, the Slumbering Tsar was supposedly going to come out so many times, so many over years, and there's a really nice foreword talking about how it actually came to finally be published, and so that's kind of really cool. And but there you go. That is a look at the book. Let me tell you exactly what I think of this mega adventure right now. I love turning to a random page and then reading the fact that in this particular room there is a greater ooze demon. And that totally goes back to like that fantastic world aspect. It's like, oh, okay, this chamber is massive with rows of narrow columns and a shallow basin at its center. Scattered within and around this basin are stacked the skeletal remains of numerous humanoids who apparently died locked in mortal combat, some armored and armored, others having used only their bare hands. And then you're reading through this, and currently lurking in the chamber is a foul greater ooze demon. It has a crocodilian head with razor-sharp teeth, and its humanoid body appears to be a swirling mass of black ooze. It charges to attack intruders, relying on its acidic body to destroy their weapons, and uses its vomit on spellcasters and archers that try to keep their distance. How cool is that? I mean, that's just like, it's one of those things where it's like, and that's just this one little encounter, you know, that's within this giant evil city, you know, and it's just, and but that's like this cool battle. Like, you can picture it in your head, you know, vomiting on these things, and you know, just like people like attacking with their, you know, their treasured +3 flaming longsword and watching it dissolve when it hits his skin. I mean, that's the stuff that DMs live for. You know, it's like, you want to really scare a fighter. Don't scare them with death. Scare them with destroying their equipment. They will run out the door if their treasured plate mail, mithril plate mail +3, you know, and stuff like that. You know, you try to take somebody's equipment away, they lose their minds. So, you know, and I don't know. It's just stuff like that. I mean, it just makes this game, and I can't wait to actually run my players through this book. I mean, I have a campaign going right now, and it's probably going to go a good another year or so, and so that'll give me a lot of time to read this book and get prepared to do it. And but I look forward to actually doing it. Now, having read, I finally have read the entire thing. Luckily, when you purchase something through Frog God Games, they actually give you access to the PDF immediately. So I started reading it right away, and I got through a good 200 or so pages before the book showed up. And then I spent the rest of the time reading those as well. Now, nuts and bolts, before I even go into anything else, and I touched on a lot of the things that I would like about it in my introduction, so I'm not going to waste a lot of time with this, but nuts and bolts, yes, $150 is a giant chunk of cash, but they released this adventure as kind of an adventure path, if you know, like each like a 48-page adventure or whatever, and like there was like 13 or 15 parts or something like that. And each one of those was like $20, and so overall you're actually saving money by getting this version due to the fact that you know, you don't have each one of those little books. You got this giant one instead. You know, plus, if you are a person that doesn't need to have this book, like I said, you can just purchase the PDF just straight up. And that's at a greatly reduced price. And you just then have access to that. You can have it in your tablet or whatever. And I know a lot of people that do that and they like it. They don't like having the book. Now me, I'm old school and I like having the book. Plus, this is just so massive and cool. I mean, and but I mean, like I take it from me. I thought about getting it probably a dozen times, and I just couldn't pull the trigger. But as soon as I had the ability to get it at the reduced price, then I did. So that's what it is. Now. The coolest thing about this book is the fact that, like, just reading it alone has been fun. And reading it, actually, in my opinion, has given me so many great ideas for, you know, traps or encounters or NPCs. And as far as the DM is concerned, it is such an invaluable resource just for that. Even if you never played this at all, this would give you so many good ideas that you could use in your own campaign, and so many different possibilities for just really dirty, evil tricks that you could play on your players. And I'm glad that I have it just for that reason. I mean, I know that, like, the DM is supposed to. I mean, this is probably a better topic, and I'm not going to dwell on it too much. This is probably a much better topic for like a podcast or a video blog. But the whole the role of the dungeon master or game master, if you will, is to facilitate the story. You know, he puts the stage out there, and then puts out the props and puts out the pieces, and then he brings in the actors and he lets them do to his stage whatever they want, and then he reacts. He figures out how that world, that play will react to what the other people do. And you're supposed to be the arbiter of the rules, but I find that when you challenge your group, when you actually put the screws to them, when you make them actually fear for their character's well-being, then winning means so much more. I've always thought it was amazing that we play Dungeons and Dragons when everybody knows that the heroes are going to win, technically. I mean, yes, we've all had our situations where we've had total player kills, total party kills, and I've had more than my fair share, probably. But there is this inherent understanding that, you know, you're not going to kill them all off. You know, it's just one of those things. And so that horrible metagaming process happens. Well, it's like, well, we might as well go into the Dungeon of Doom because, you know, we're going to get out. He's going to let us live. And it's just like, and when you hear that, you know, then that's, as if you're a DM worth your salt, then you need to kill that player immediately when that happens. Oh, really? You know, and take them down. And I like the fact that there are some things like this that don't really pull their punches. I mean, the players have to think, and they have to actually realize, maybe we shouldn't go in the demon door just yet. Let's just back up. I mean, there's a couple of encounters that are specifically based and put into places where the players can find them fairly soon. I mean, this book, they say it's for like level 5 at the very least, and it will take you to level 20. But there's spots that you could actually get into serious trouble right away from the get-go, and they need to know to run. And the game is nice enough to kind of give you a couple of those right away, and they kind of put the kid gloves on a little bit, you know, and kind of bat the players around and teach them. It's like, you need to be a little more careful with what you're doing here, or else you might end up, you know, on the wrong side of a spear, if you will. And that's good that it does that. But then after, you know, it kind of swats them around a little bit. If they still, you know, keep saying, oh, let's just keep going through that demon door, eventually they'll say, okay, well, fine, you're done. Here's some 6-sided dice. Roll up a new character. Let's try this again. And I like that. You know, and if you're not that kind of a DM / player, if that isn't what you enjoy, then, you know, it's quite possible that this isn't going to be your cup of tea. But if you're looking for a wonderful, old school, massive, huge, mega adventure with tons of super awesome combats and NPCs, and, you know, and there's tons of situations where, you know, ROLL playing is going to be king, but there's a lot of role playing as well that is going to be important as well, just as much. And actually, for that matter, I like this more than Rappin' the Thook for that regard, because, and I'll touch on this again with Rappin' the Thook. Rappin' the Thook was an awesome mega dungeon, but it was a dungeon. It was go into this room, run into the monster that is going to try to kill you, and you kill it, and or it kills you, and then you know, go to the next room and run into the monster that's going to try to kill you, and either you kill it or it kills you, and so on and so forth. And for a dungeon crawl, it was, you know, beyond compare. But as a world that allowed you to really play a character and play a role, not so much. But this, however, the Slumbering Tsar, actually does afford that. I love the camp, which is, you know, the town, obviously. That is an excellent place with tons of crazy NPCs for the people to run into. I mentioned that when I showed you those pages, and tons of opportunities for role playing as far as that is concerned. And plus, there are actual good people that you can run into out in the desolation and in the dungeons and what have you, that will allow for that as well. Also, and even though it's out of print, and I showed you this earlier, you can get the PDF of Bard's Gate, which is like the town that's like south of the camp, and the idea is that the players are in Bard's Gate and they leave and they because they get the mission or the reason to go to the Slumbering Tsar when they're in Bard's Gate. And so if you pick this up, and like I said, you can pick this up as a PDF, and this is an excellent source book and will allow another great base of operations as well for your players. But I mean, that's as maybe. I mean, you could put this dungeon, like I said, anywhere you want. You could put it right outside the main city of your world, and then the players can just go there, and then they can come out and have all the role-playing aspects they want in that situation, and then head right back in. And let me tell you, I mean, if you're a player, I've read through it. The big reveal as far as what the hell is going on in the giant evil city is well worth finding out, and the big reveal is amazing. And if you're looking for an epic, amazing battle to pitch your players against that is winnable but dang difficult, it'll be one that you'll talk about for a long time as a player. You know, I guess I just can't say enough. The only thing that kept me from owning this earlier was the price tag. And now after having read it and gone through everything, yeah, I did wait for it to be on sale, but I should have bought it 2 years ago. If only for the reason that about 2 years ago I started this campaign that I've been running. And even though I've had a lot of fun playing this one with my friends and this little homebrew dungeon and campaign world that I've created, I can't help but wonder how much more fun I would have had if I'd put them through this over the last couple of years as well. So there you go. That is the Slumbering Tsar Saga. If you have any questions about this or RPGs in general or whatever, please ask away. I'd love to hear from you. If there's any RPGs out there that or source books or whatever that you'd think that I dig and you think I should pick them up and maybe do a review of, please let me know. I'd love to hear that, actually. But there you go. So thanks, as always, for watching this thing that I do. Thanks for watching this new thing that I just did. But until next time, I am the Undead Viking. I am Killer DM number 66. And yeah, just have yourself one heck of an awesome day. And I'll talk to you soon. All right, bye-bye.